everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I'm here again with Dillon Lange, and we're going to talk about Dune Prophecy episodes 3 and 4. And these are some really banging episodes that really threw a lot of stuff out there. So I'll toss it over to Dillon and see what he wants to talk about first. What struck you?
Okay. Well, again, we should probably start with just in chronological order, I guess. With episode 3, and I mean, I think the biggest reveal in episode 3 is probably the ending bit with Tula taking a comatose Lila to an AI, but. That episode has a lot of revelations about the character's history. They brought back the young actresses from the very first episode, that kind of intro segment, and we get to see a lot of we understand why Valia feels the way she does about her house and family, and we also start to understand just how much she resents the Atreides. Because I remember in episode 1 or 2, she mentions like the Atreides in a pretty hateful way. And you understand, if you're a Dune fan, that there's of course a rivalry there, but you don't really know exactly what happened. But we find out in this episode that her brother Griffin was murdered, allegedly, by Vorian Atreides, who we don't get a face. We don't know what he looks like, which has led to some fan speculation, to my understanding, that you were telling me about, with the identity of Desmond Hart. Um, and we also get to understand a little bit more about Tula as a character, because we see how much she's willing to kind of risk herself, in a sense, for her sister. She went behind enemy lines and seduced an Atreides boy, and then murdered them all.
Yeah.
In the night, with some, I think, poison is what she
Mm-hmm.
used. And yeah, like that's, I mean,
There was
she lets one of them go,
right.
but yeah,
I like the whole setup with that. I mean, they're in the woods, apparently, so I guess on somewhere on Caladan, and apparently the Atreides go on an annual hunt to hunt these boars that live up in the hills of the forest or whatever. And we get this whole scene of her explaining the poison to this kid. These little squirrel-like things have these poison glands in them, and you have to remove them carefully. And then I guess the bulls are like meat eaters or whatever, because you have to bait them with
yeah.
the smell of this fresh meat, but then you have to remove the poison from the meat. So I guess the bull eats it. But
It was like an alien bull from what it looked like.
it was kind of
Uh,
looked like an aurochs or something. It was something that has gone extinct here. But it's yeah, and then so we get the whole thing. We get to see with the horse and how killing the horse with the poison was more gentle than like slitting its throat with a knife. And even in the future, we apparently cannot heal horses' legs very well. Horses just kind of delicate that way, and they just stay that way apparently. But we really think she cares for him. I mean, do think that she actually does care for this kid. That she
yeah,
seems to really regret killing him, but she kills him anyway. And all of his relatives that are up there, except for the one kid she lets go, which we find out then in episode 4 turns out to be Kieran's father. So oops, you should have killed them all, maybe. Because now Kieran may be a fly in your ointment. Some 30 years later, but can't change it now. So she lets one Atreides go, but all the others, and that was pretty. I mean, that's pretty hardcore. We just
yeah,
poison a bunch of people and then poison the guy you seem to be in love with.
yeah. She did seem genuinely kind of heartbroken about what she had to do.
Right.
And maybe that's just because of him being so willing to accept her as a Harkonnen,
Mm-hmm.
which I think she maybe wasn't expecting.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but yeah, and then to get into the kind of interesting things that like Frank Herbert had done with like the idea of ox and bulls and the Atreides being these uh Paul's grandfather fought bulls for sport, and it's apparently been like passed down generations, and all the way through 10,000 years. And how like the root word of Harkonnen or Harkonnen, I always forget how to pronounce it.
Well, it depends. In the David Lynch movie, they're Harkonnens, and in the Billy Deneuve movies, they're Harkonnens. So
They
I would generally go back with the Harkonnen because that David Lynch had Frank Herbert on the set. I think that
yeah,
Frank Herbert would have known how to say it, but that's a pretty close Harkonnen. It's not so different.
yeah. They their flag in the books have a bull on it versus the Atreides eagle, which is some iconography that I think is missing in the Denis Villeneuve adaptations. But the Harkonnens and their name and everything, all, and even like the Baron's like brutish strength and everything, they're all meant to be a little bullish in a sense, versus in this like rivalry against the Atreides. And so I kind of appreciated them bringing that full circle here. Apparently, if you apparently, if I remember correctly, in the book, they explain that the Atreides bloodline goes all the way back to like ancient Greece. And if you want to get like really kind of nerdy about like history and archaeological stuff, like you could maybe even pinpoint that the Atreides could come from like Minos, that kind of area, where they fought bull for sport there and worshipped them as gods and everything. That's where the Minotaur myth comes from. I might be getting the name of the kingdom wrong. It's totally possible. But so that's kind of interesting that he, again, is incorporating kind of real world history and flinging it that far into the future a little bit.
But we also kind of symbolic then that the Atreides spend 10,000 years killing bulls, and the family that's represented by a bull are the Harkonnens. So
Yeah, and also apparently spent 10,000 years at war with them too,
yeah,
or in some weird way. I don't know. They don't. I'm I'm curious what like the prequels building up to right before like Dune kind of go into, because you kind of get the vibe even just from this show that like the wars are more like Cold Wars in a sense, where it's like they're moving pieces and it's spies killing spies. It's not necessarily like full on battles.
well, no, so you have Canley, you need all these rules of Canley to keep the amount of violence down.
Yeah.
So, which is why they have all the you send out a like challenge someone to a duel and they have to show up or have a champion kind of stuff. We see in the end of Dune Part 2.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got a lot of things getting set up. So we get all this backdrop on Valia and Tula and their brother that they miss. The mother who doesn't seem to respect Valia at all. So when Valia goes out and gets the whale meat for lunch, and the mother's like, "Well, next time I need to send your sister, because you didn't get like I guess the choice cuts of meat or whatever." And Tula's like, "Well, I wouldn't mind going out to get it, whatever, something." But it seems like the mother is just content to be like on this cold, frozen whale planet, and the Harkonnens are just going to sit here and freeze and eat whale meat forever or something, and have no ambition. And it's Valia who wants to bring them back. But then when we're doing the scenes in the present, we've got Tula not really wanting to let go of Lila. We still don't know who Lila's mother was, but we must have some idea that since she's in some kind of comatose state, that she's still wandering around with other memory, and other memory is probably going to be Dorothea taking over, and that someone born twice with blood and of spice is probably going to end up being Lila and not Desmond.
Yeah.
The people are suggesting that first when we got that prophecy.
I could see that. Maybe I'm wrong, and I could be just misremembering, but I thought the tooth that she gives Lila in episode 3, or no, episode 2, I thought she said that was from her mother, and then
It was her favorite. No, it was like Griffin gave it to her. She said it was like my favorite keepsake or my favorite tchotchke kind of thing. Yeah.
I thought that she had mentioned that it had come from her mother. So okay,
Yeah, they were very carefully not mention anything about her mother, because like when she says my mother could be there if I take the drug, and it's like, well, but she
yeah,
could be, and then Tula says, well, she could be, but it's clear that Tula knows her mother's not going to be there. Why is her mother not going to be there? That's a mystery. Who
yeah,
is
I'm really
Dorothea's
curious.
daughter, and why isn't she in this list of female ancestresses? So
Maybe uh maybe she's gonna be like a test tube baby or something. Like
I don't know. Maybe she's a Gola. Who knows?
yeah.
Which make like an axolotl tank your mom, I guess.
Yeah.
Which could be interesting. So yeah, we don't know what's going on with Lila. We just know that by the end of the third episode, that Tula has her in a tank breathing in a bunch of spice. So I did like then by somewhere in episode three, but and then again in episode four, we start hearing lots of whispers that when we see Valia and Tula thinking, so we know that they are chatting up other memory, and that this is a constant thing that Reverend Mothers have to battle their whole lives because you have these hundreds of thousands of ancestresses who will all would kind of like to be alive again, and you have to
Yeah.
be able to force them back, all the time so you can keep control of your body, which is one of the points of going through the whole level of training why Lila wasn't prepared. Maybe she could have survived the spice, but can you survive all the other memory trying to possess you because all you have these ancestors who are like, no, I want to be alive again. I want to have your body.
You
And
got
you got
uses.
to be able to strong enough to say no and to mean it. And it takes years and years of strength training, kind of in a way, the mind, training the mind to be strong. So maybe we'll hear some more whispers later. But we see in episode four when Valia goes back and is going to this like the Harkonnens' apartment in that capital city on Seleucus Secundus. And walks to the apartment. These voices are saying, "You're not welcome here. You shouldn't be here. You shouldn't come back,"
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So, yeah, her ancestors are really being like a little snarky to her there. But her
Which
nephew doesn't seem to mind when he said, "I'll be your truth sayer, and I want to get you into the High Council," and he seems more than willing to be used that way.
yeah. Uh part I was there's I'm curious why I know that the method that Valia used to become a Reverend Mother wasn't necessarily like the water of life from like a sandworm. Uh, but I'm curious if that's why her eyes didn't turn blue.
I assume not
Uh,
because it wasn't spice.
yeah. Because I remember being a little confused for a moment, and then I was like, I guess there's other poisons. Like Paul references that in the original book.
Yeah, and
Uh,
even Jessica says something like that in part two of doing Dennis Villeneuve's Dues, where Paul says, "How do they do it?" And she says, "Well, every culture it's different.
yeah,
So it may not every culture may not use the actual spice for the spice agony, but I think at least I think in the Herbert books, the Brian Herbert books, that this Rossack drug that they're using maybe something that they phase out during those books. Maybe I don't know.
yeah. Maybe it's that
Um,
they haven't developed the method
the
for.
spice, collecting the spice
Yeah,
yet, because you've got to figure out how to catch a baby sandworm and drain its bile out, drown it and then drain the bile out.
it
Um,
seems like a very specific process, and it's a wonder how anyone discovered it.
yeah, I'm just
um,
going to drown this baby sandworm and see what happens.
and some of the stuff that is going on with that, like with those other voices and everything, is kind of setting up important stuff for Messiah and Children of Dune if they ever adapt that,
Mhm.
especially, which would be cool to see. But yeah,
Yeah,
and all this is just episode three.
I know. And then when we get to episode four, there's so much more going on. And we have, I think Desmond Hart's trying to be really one of the more intriguing characters of the show, and his interactions with Mark Strong's Emperor
Yeah,
obviously are really interesting. And so because he's so insistent that he's so loyal and he's so fanatical, even when the Emperor says, "Are you the one spreading the rumors?" And he's like, "I would never do anything that would like blow back on you." Of course, his wife turns out is the one doing it, but Desmond Hart doesn't seem to have too much of a problem with that since her motivation is to get the Emperor to step up and be stronger and to like start like getting rid of his opponents. And since Desmond Hart also wants to get rid of his opponents, he doesn't seem to have a problem with the Empress working the way she's been working to try to get Haviko to step up and do what needs to be done, or what she thinks needs to be done, what Desmond thinks needs to be done. But that Haviko doesn't really seem to think what needs to be done. So you still see this, I mean, really intriguing byplay between him and Desmond, him and his wife, and then even when the daughter comes out and she's like, "Hey, I'll, it's us, it's the royal house, the imperial house that should be investigated for this," and everybody's taking Valia's thunder away from her. She's managed to get her nephew into the High Council. It's not the entire Landsraad. I keep seeing people saying, well, she wants to get her, family back in Landsraad. It's like, no, they're in the Landsraad, but there's like 400 and something families in that, but
Yeah.
she gets her nephew on the High Council, and there only seems to be like 30 to 40 of those guys. So, yeah, now somebody who's just a baron, which at least if they're using the English system is the lowest level of nobility, is in the same council, all these dukes, which is the highest, level of nobility. So, because I'd kind of wondered that, why is that like Baron Harkonnen but Duke Atreides? But this may be why, because at this point she gets her nephew on that High Council, and they just keep that seat for the next 10,000 years. So, here he is kind of being manipulated by his sister and these dukes who want to, stand up to Haviko, and but then Desmond Hart's right there to like take her thunder again. So first the princess steps out on her and blocks her, and then Desmond Hart comes out and blocks her, and he's the one who gets rid of the rebels. He's found the rebels with these people what we assume are going to be like the proto Sardaukar.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very interesting character in that like he's this obviously antagonistic figure, but it's all like even though like every scene with the Emperor feels like a confrontation. It feels like it's this like villain in the Emperor's way almost, but it's like he's still so loyal to the throne at the same time that it's like it's more that he's just angry that the Emperor isn't doing more with the power and he just wants to help him, and then that kind of makes you wonder, okay, well, why don't you just try to take the throne for yourself? uh and it's a very interesting character. I'm curious again where all of his stuff is going to end up going, because again we see a little bit of some type of vision whenever he decides to burn the rebels, uh, where he's swallowed by a worm and then these blue eyes and this kind of robotic noise happens. Uh, and maybe it's not meant to be a robotic noise. Maybe it's meant to kind of be similar to the noise that plays whenever Jessica takes the water of life in part two, because that's a pretty like deep wah noise too. But this one does have like almost a distinctly electronic vibe to it.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people assuming that a lot of people assuming it's either Paul or Leto the Second, but Leto the Second so far hasn't been mentioned in either the movies or this TV show, so I really doubt it's going to turn out to be the God Emperor, but that it might be one of the machines, Omnius or whatever, that I would buy.
It'd be so weird for me because again, like I'm not as into the Brian Herbert stuff, but like I'm a sucker for like robot uprising stories, and I'd be really down for some robots to just be on screen. I know that like he's one of the few there's like two robot characters that are actually like human sized in the Brian Herbert stuff, I think.
Okay.
All of them are like massive, and like they're like some of them are like planet like computer systems that are all hooked up together. But like Erasmus specifically is like he's very much that like the photo you see of him on like the Dune wiki is like he's just a guy and he's got like blue robes. There's a lot of weird things they could do with the robot side of this, because I feel like not a lot of people even know about that. And again,
Yeah.
like even that intro segment almost feels like a perfect setup for like a prequel TV show
Yeah.
about the Machine Crusade.
Well, we also had Desmond being the one that stabbed the little mechanical lizard and returned to the kid, and he's the one who's so against the machines that it makes me wonder if he is one or is part one. Um, and that was our clue, was that he knew what to do with the lizard, and while everyone else was going, it's a thinking machine running around, and he's just like,
Yeah,
stab it. So I don't know. There have been a lot of things of who is Desmond Hart. The explanation I think is least compelling is that it's Vorian Atreides. I don't know what Vorian would be doing as Desmond Hart and trying to build a super loyal, fanatical, religious military group, that the Farinos are going to be able to use for the next 84 generations and
yeah,
beyond. Because when Paul takes over, they don't transfer the loyalty to Paul, right? They remain loyal to Shaddam before it, right? So that loyalty doesn't go with the throne so much as it goes to the person on the throne, and it's got to be a Carino, apparently. Um, so I don't buy that it's Vorian, and a lot of people think he's a Gola. It's a little more possible, but you know, unless the Blenny Tulaks forget how to give Golas memories, at this point in time in history, they don't know how to give them the memories of the person they've cloned. So that would be a no from me on that.
yeah,
Um, to me, I'm thinking the most likely thing, and I'll probably be completely wrong, is that he's like a wild Kwisatz Haderach, and that being exposed to spice inside the worm when he got swallowed up somehow, um, basically did the same thing as drinking the water of life did to Paul. And so he's been like spit out and has gone through his own spice agony and has come back as a Kwisatz Haderach. But he's a wild one. No one knew this was going to happen. No one knew it was even possible. The Sisterhood, he's against the Sisterhood, and so it seems to me like he's the one that gives them the idea. Well, we could breed one of those things, and it'd be ours to control, and that he's really the one that gives them the idea in the first place. And this is part of our breeding program needs to be to get another Desmond Hart, but one of ours, right? Something that will obey us. It doesn't work out so well for them, but I could see where they get the idea. But I mean,
yeah.
those are not the only ideas. I mean, there are other ideas of who this guy could be. So it'll be interesting to see. And now that Velia has some blood of his, maybe we'll find out in episode 5.
Yeah, I like obviously, and also the next episode is titled "In Blood Truth," so I think we're going to get some reveals about that. The reason why I could lean towards the Vorian Atreides thing is if they're going to bring in like bloodlines and genetics into his reveal, that I could see that being relevant. I don't necessarily know unless they like plug in his blood into a machine and it goes, oh, there's no known bloodline with this DNA, and it's like, oh, it's fake blood. He's a robot, or something like that. I'm yeah. Otherwise, I do agree. I don't know what Vorian Atreides would really be doing or trying to gain. They've got 2 episodes where they could explain his motivations and what he's doing. It does feel like, again, he's kind of even though he's got this like loyalty to the throne, it could just be like a performance, and it kind of feels a little bit like he is acting beyond his own knowledge, if that makes sense. Like there could be another party behind him, which is why again I kind of keep leaning towards Ixion or robot or something. Um, but I mean, it's definitely not like you see all of these things of what he could be, but you never see anyone throw around anything to do with the Spacing Guild or anything to do with the Mentats. We haven't gotten a lot of those in this series, and I don't think we're gonna suddenly get them in the last 2 episodes. Though we
Yeah.
did suddenly get a face dancer at the very
Yes.
end of this episode,
The
so
reveals for the past 2 episodes have been amazing. We had the reveal of the sisters keeping an AI in the basement. And now we've got the next episode is like a reveal of the face dancer, and Theodosia turns out to be a face dancer. It's like finally the Tleelacs are, on the screen. They weren't in the David Lynch thing, and they weren't in the Denis Villeneuve, and they weren't, but now we've got them.
yeah,
And it's so we haven't got Mentats in the guild yet, but we've got the Tleelacs, and we've got a face dancer. So cool. And I just love these episodes, the way they're ending them with like you just really wanted them not to stop. It's like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, they've got an AI. Tell me more. And then no, it's the end of the episode. And I was like, oh my God, there's a face dancer. And it's like, I need to keep watching. No, it's the end of the episode. Oh, I've got to wait another week. They really know how to set these things up that you really want to come back the next week.
I
But
was gonna say,
people have been saying the
like,
show is boring. I'm like, well, are you watching the same show that I'm watching? It's not boring at all.
yeah, I was gonna say it's like you can probably I could probably find complaints about like the show as a whole, but like in terms of structure for each episode, each one ends with something where I go, I have to see the next episode. I'm excited. Like I haven't been left disappointed by an episode yet. Like the closest was for episode 3, and that's mostly just because it's all like flashback almost. There's like 10 minutes of modern stuff, but there is sort of a trend with these kind of modern prestige television shows where it's like, here's the flashback episode where they like explain a lot of stuff. Even shows like the Penguin, which I've been really enjoying, have an episode that's like all flashback. Every like Netflix show like Stranger Things, Daredevil, all of those, like every single prestige mini series thing, they've got like the flashback episode. And I personally would like it more if it was kind of like spread out a little bit more. You get maybe a couple scenes here or there each episode, but hey, what happened was important and was good.
It
I'm
was
not gonna.
gripping. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right from they coming on this horse and she's apparently a trees go up in the forest and hunt a boar or a bull every summer and it's like, okay, it's interesting. And then we get the whole thing with the little animals and she's explaining how to get the little poison sacs out of them and
yeah,
then the horse and we kill the horse with a poison because it's more gentle than like slicing his throat open. And all this stuff is just, it was really gripping and you think it really shouldn't be, but then you see how it all plays. So then she's going to kill all these people, we assume, with the same poison.
yeah.
And then she then uses it on Ori as well. And so, it's like, it's gripping stuff, really. And all the actors they've had in the show are just great. I don't know if I've been disappointed by any of them so far. The one thing that's been confusing me a little bit lately, and it has to do with color, and that is in the flashback episodes, when we look at the Reverend Mothers versus their students, they're all wearing black.
Hmm.
And so sometimes it's hard for me to tell, is this still a student? Have they become a Reverend Mother? Have they gone through the agony? I'm not sure what stage people are at. Because when we come to the like present day scenes, they're all wearing green if they're students and they're black if they're Reverend Mothers. So I know it's
Yeah.
pretty clear on who's a Reverend Mother and who isn't. But in the past, I'm been confused in a couple of things like, well, am I supposed to understand her to be a Reverend Mother or is she still a student? And I wish they'd had them kind of a little more color coded for that. But
The Denis Villeneuve movies also kind of have that color coding thing where the Reverend Mothers appear to be in black while students are. The Princess Rulon is in white and Jessica is usually wearing like gray or something like that. Um, and I mean, her Reverend Mother outfit is a completely different thing, but that's because she's like a Fremen Reverend Mother. Um, but yeah, I lost my train of thought there for a moment. Yeah, it's a compelling show. It's really good so far. I remember what I was gonna say. I was just gonna like offhandly like say like I said that about like not liking flashback episodes, but one of my favorite like graphic novel series is Berserk, and I think a quarter of that entire, so it's like 360 chapters so far, and like 90 of them is a flashback arc, and it's like some of my favorite writing ever. So I just don't know what I like. um, because again, like we were just discussing, the episode 3 is good. It's compelling. It's just like I don't know. Sometimes I feel like just with it all being kind of dumped at once, it kind of interrupts the flow of the modern story that like I want to keep up with. Because again, we're in the middle of some really exciting stuff with the modern story.
we only have 6 episodes, and that was episode 3.
Yeah, now we've only got 2. We got 2 left. What's gonna happen?
Yeah.
Um, I can't say that I'm like necessarily on the edge of my seat in terms of like, oh, who's gonna live or die? Because again, we kind of understand what's gonna happen. But like it's still it's just, I want to know more about Desmond. I want to know his deal. I want to know what's going to happen with Lila, if she's going to be if she's going to like spin the sisterhood off into her own thing, or if she's going to get stopped and killed off or something.
Maybe Tula
uh
will have to kill her and improve her strength again, right?
yeah.
Because we do see a little in the trailer for episode 5. We see a really brief shot. It looks like Lila leading a bunch of Reverend Mothers, and the one that's right behind her looks like a Sister Avila, who has been kind of like the semi one to stand up to Tula. When she wanted to like have Lila's life support removed, she's like, "Well, I could do it for
Yeah.
you." And Tula's like, "No, I'll do it when it's time." And she's the one that like had something snarky to say when Tula was making up the drug to begin with. So, I don't think Sister Avila is completely on board with the Harkonnens in charge of the Sisterhood. So if Dorothea were to come back, you think she'd be back in Dorothea's faction. So, and we know
Yeah.
that she still has a faction because we get another scene in the little Conus Islands, right? And these are all the Dorothea followers
Yeah.
from episode 1. So it's like they still, I guess they didn't know what to do when Dorothea had died. But should they get Dorothea back, then we may have this split right down the middle with Tula and Volya on one side and Dorothea on the other.
And Dorothea, if she, does like the abomination thing and takes over Lila, has the ability to be like a kind of a messiah figure in that she came back and established that her way is possibly the right way, uh, and convince the other. So like again, you were saying that maybe some of them just didn't feel as strongly about uh, Dorothea's beliefs after she died, but like maybe with her coming back, it like inspires this kind of religious fervor again.
Well, when Volya comes out
Um,
on top, it's like, what are you going to do? You can like follow Volya or leave the Sisterhood, right? I mean,
yeah, get told to slit your throat with the voice.
yeah. So what if? Okay, here's an idea. What if Lila is a Gola? Maybe she's a Gola for Kella.
Maybe. Again, it's
Because she doesn't have the memories of Raquel's memories, so I mean, she could
yeah,
still be a Goba.
it's very curious just why they can't say that
Where's
anything
her
about her
mother?
mother.
Yeah.
I'm
So maybe
I'm
they commissioned her from the Tleelax. So she was thrown in an axolotl tank, and
and that could tie it into, because again, like if you're, it'd be one thing to just have like a face dancer randomly in this and to like offhandedly mention the Bene Tleelax. I'm assuming that maybe they'll play into something a little bit more. So again, like the logical place to take that is like if Desmond, because again, I don't think Desmond is a Gola at this point. I mean, maybe he could, but I don't think so. If you're not going to go that route with Desmond, maybe you bring the Bene Tleelax in through Lila. Uh, and again, this is assuming that they wrap things up in a satisfying way with
into
two episodes left.
unless they just have another, great cliffhanger, and we're like, we didn't answer any of our questions. Who's Desmond Hart? Who's Lila?
Yeah,
Whatever. And we only, yeah. Now what? We got like 2 or 3 years to wait for another season. I mean,
if they
they
even renew it.
if they even renew it, yeah. I mean, Rings of Power just got renewed for season 3, so at least we'll have. And then Amazon still says there's going to be 5 seasons, so we'll say
Yeah,
we'll see how it goes. But I don't know what they're planning for Dune. If they had planned, to ask, them for more than one season, or they thought, well, here's a 6 episode thing, we can just tie everything up, or I mean, because they're setting up an awful lot of stuff,
yeah.
and
From
it looks beautiful, and there's all these sets, and like everywhere we go, there's more sets, there's more costumes. This looks like you just spent hundreds of millions of dollars, with offices and throne rooms and streets and houses and snow planets and I just the sisterhood, all the rooms there in the sisterhood, and all, when they go outside and just the building when outside clearly has got to be CGI, but the interior shots, surely most of those are just a room,
yeah,
but they've just got to have this excessive number of sets, and they all look beautiful.
I am aware of like the production for the series being, at least the pre-production was like a very slow and tedious process. There was a certain point where I think Denis Villeneuve was going to direct the first
Mhm.
episode, but I haven't seen his name attached to any of the opening
Yeah. I
credits.
thought he left it at some point. I don't know because it was taking too long and he had other projects he had to get to or what, but
I assume he just had other stuff
yeah.
to do.
Surely he's busy.
Yeah, I mean he's planning Dune Messiah. He's planning an adaptation of Rendezvous with Rama. He's planning a Cleopatra movie. Yeah, he's got stuff to do. Um, and but yeah, so I don't know if they just are planning on just these 6 episodes, that maybe they were planning for something longer, but through this like painful process of just getting it made, they went, well, just do the one thing. But I haven't heard anyone talking about multi-season arcs or anything. It's been pretty quiet in terms
Mhm.
of even the marketing was pretty low key. Uh I do like that the episodes are pretty long too.
Mhm.
Each one's like an hour long. It's almost like getting like a short movie every week.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I'm hoping we get a season 2 or something. I would
Mhm.
like to. Uh, but also if they manage to wrap everything up, because I mean it does feel like everything's coming to a little bit of a head.
Mhm.
Uh, I don't know what they do for a season 2.
Well, I mean, even if Valia and Desmond have some kind of, knockdown drag out at the end of episode 6, there's so much other stuff going on that with her nephew and the Landsrod and the High Council and the, Emperor and his wife and his daughter and what's with having this, this bastard son that who hasn't done a whole lot. You're ever going to like
Yeah.
really develop his character into anything? Um, I mean, my least favorite character is really Kieran Atreides. He doesn't seem to be doing much of. I mean, he's part of this rebellion, but we see him for like a couple of episodes, a couple of scenes, and then you don't
Yeah.
really see him again. And he seems very uninteresting as a character. So far, they haven't really bothered either to develop him very much. Maybe he'll
I would
turn
have
out to
liked
be fascinating. I don't know, but at the moment, four episodes in, I'm not finding him that interesting.
I would have liked, I mean, so far, again, we've got 2 episodes, but I would have liked for him to be a bit more radical, if that makes sense. Like him
Mhm.
being more involved with the rebellion and being more vocal
Mhm.
about it. Uh, and because that would have been interesting and kind of leaning a little bit into the Atreides kind of method. Because when you flash forward 10,000 years, the Carino has beef with the Atreides in a sense because they're so charismatic and so able to inspire and to lead. So it would be interesting to see them, you know, seed that a little bit early on with him being able to maybe inspire like a courtroom of people
Mhm.
or something. But at the moment, I agree. He's just kind of been there, and he's handsome. It's not like he's like ugly or something. So I guess he's there for eye candy. I don't know. Same
I,
with
with Constantine, yeah, I think they're pretty men, but their characters have not really been given a whole lot to do. So
I'm
even if
actually
they're great actors, I think they just haven't had anything to work with yet,
I'm
really.
actually not too disappointed about Constantine not getting too much to do because I remember from the trailers I saw him and I was like, oh, that kind of looks like Timothy Chalamet. He's just gonna be like the Paul of this series or something. But then he ended up not mattering much at all so far, and I'm kind of okay with him not necessarily being super important because I
Well,
was really worried.
the one thing that makes me curious about him though is now we know that when the princess was kidnapped and was held captive for years, maybe I thought someone said years at one time, and he volunteers to go with her, right? We don't
Yeah,
know what happened to them when they were kidnapped together. So there could
yeah,
be something weird going on with one or both of them. Both of them could be Golas, We don't know what if they were switched out. And then they had to spend years getting these Golas up to speed on, like training them into memories because they wouldn't have had them as Golas.
yeah.
Um, so who knows? Maybe there are a whole Benny Telex thing going on there.
There was a
But it looks like maybe because Theodosia's has been assigned to Inez that they were going to get Inez to Wallach 9, that maybe Theodosia would have replaced the princess, and that's how they get one of their own on the throne. It's not going to be Inez, it's going to be Theodosia playing Inez, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. The I will say that so there was a one of the Marvel shows, WandaVision,
Mhm.
where like every week everyone was speculating if a certain character was Mephisto or not, and it was like always a different character each week. And at this point with like Dune, it feels a little bit like, is this character a Gola? It's like everyone's like looking for a Gola somewhere.
Yeah,
um I but yeah, again, I'm still riding the high of getting a face dancer in this show. I'm really happy and excited about that.
yeah.
Um
And I'm curious to see if the plan was to get Theodosia on there. Although Theodosia says that her one condition for joining the Sisterhood was she wouldn't have to use her powers, right?
yeah,
But maybe to be the Empress of the known universe would be a good trade-off, but just use them one more time.
yeah, but yeah,
So who knows? Well, we're looking forward to episode 5 in a few days here. So
yeah,
I don't know if we'll be able to come back after episode 5, or we'll have to wait till we have 5 and 6 to talk about it together. But Dillon and I will certainly be back to finish up this season. I'm just looking forward to those 2 episodes a lot.
yeah. Really
So
excited. And even just the names of the episode titles make me excited.
they've been interesting episode title names, which is good.
Yeah,
I once heard someone complaining about Star Trek: The Next Generation, and because the original show had titles like "For the World Is Hollow" and "I've Touched the Sky,"
yeah,
and there was just these interests, is there in truth no beauty? And then the episode names of Next Generation, like the trial, the court, the verdict,
yeah,
it was just like, because I knew it's the person who was supposed to be keeping them all straight, and he had like a Bible of which episode was which. And he's like, it's so hard to keep them straight. What's the difference between the trial and the verdict? And they're like different seasons or whatever. And it just like was driving me nuts that no one put any effort into these titles. But at least in this show, they are putting some effort into that. So
yeah. It's something that I don't pay as much attention to as like other people do in terms of like episode titles, but this one, just scrolling through the wiki page for each episode, it's like, oh no, these are really good and kind of relevant. I should have been paying attention to these. um yeah, so very excited for next week's episode and the week after.
all right. Well, we'll be back to talk about it. So if you enjoyed this, please hit like and subscribe and that little bell notification. I'd appreciate it a lot. And if you have friends who've been watching Dune, please ask them to like and subscribe too. It'd be really great. And if
Yeah.
you don't agree, let us know who you think Desmond Hart is, or what do you think Valia's plan with Theodosia is, or is Lila really a Gola of Raquel? Who knows? And is that why she doesn't have a mother? Well, hopefully we'll find out, but we don't know right now. But if you have guesses of your own, stick them down there in the comments, and we will see you next time. Bye bye.
Goodbye.